Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of BlueTruth. Hey, I got that right this week. I got it wrong last week by accident. BlueTruth, New York Rangers talk on the Sports Box. I am Brian Attard. Welcome to another show talking about everybody's favorite hockey team. And if it's not yours, I don't know what to tell you. Quick shout out to my friend Chad Esposito, who is in enemy territory tonight at Nassau Coliseum, wearing red, white, and blue, as the Boston Bruins have a 1-0 lead on the bastard New York Islanders in Game 3 of that series. But absolute metric ton to talk about tonight here on BlueTruth. I want to interact with you guys. Questions, comments, bring them. Let's talk a lot of Rangers tonight, a lot of stuff going on to go over. But before we get into the meat of tonight's discussion, I just want to bring this topic up because I don't know if I'm in the minority on this, and if I am, that's fine. Part of the Sports Box Network is a Facebook group called Outside the Box, and in that group, a question was asked, are Rangers fans jealous of the Islanders' success? And the overwhelming response from Rangers fans within that group was, what success? Which is the correct answer, because I don't recall the Islanders raising any silver chalices since 1983. And I was born in 1984, so I've only seen it on videotape, and it was pretty grainy at the time. But I really don't understand where people decide to gauge success. And I'd like to hear from the comments that are coming in. There's Chad says, I swear I'm not a defector. No, you are doing God's work, my friend. You are in enemy territory cheering on those Boston Bruins. Let's go, Boston. Ron Sposito, it's mine. Looking forward to going back to season 25 next year. Kana says, I can't believe I have to actually root for a Boston team. Listen, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Islanders had one good season. Now they think they're hot shit. But here's the thing, though, right? The Rangers had a run from 2012 to 2016, and, that's all great and everything. We didn't win anything, right? So what was the success? How do you define success? Because for me, there's one team that's successful. There's one team that wins at the end of the year every year, one team that raises the Stanley Cup, and that was us in 1994. And it hasn't been since, and that's reality, and that's okay. Hopefully we're on the path to getting there. But for people who find subsequent losing to somehow be winning, I can't go with you on that. I don't understand your thought process. I don't get it. No idea why people feel that if you lose later, you're a winner. Do we feel like winners for what happened in 2012 when we were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, ended up losing to goddamn New Jersey in the conference finals? Were we winners in 2014 when the Los Angeles Kings paraded around Staples Center with the Stanley Cup? Were we winners in 2015 when Tampa Bay walked into Madison Square Garden for Game 7, the day that I closed on this house, forever immortalized in my MSG commercial, and eliminated us? Were we winners in 2017 when we had it for the taking with us in Ottawa and lost? I just don't. Losing later is still losing. You don't win. Now, we might be winners at some point, but we're not winners right now. And for Islander fans or anybody else to start claiming success because, they are in the second round of the playoffs, I mean, I don't see it. Again, share your comments. Am I in the minority here? I mean, to me, we go for gold, okay? We go for winning championships. That is the goal of anybody. Anything short of that is not a successful season. Now, having said that, it can be a productive season. The Rangers had a very productive season last year. They got the number 1 pick in the draft. Had a very productive season the year before. Ended up with Kaapo Kakko, the 2nd overall pick. Had a very productive season the year before that. 3 picks in the 2018 first round. Productive does not mean success. It means productive. So, I don't know. I really want to hear from you guys because I'd like to get a feel for, what you guys are thinking here. Savior says, we did win the President's Trophy. Yeah, but they don't do parades for that, bud. We need banners, parades. We need 1994 again, not anything else. James, they've gotten past the first round multiple times recently. It's been an Achilles heel for them for the longest. Yeah, that's I hear you, but like, is that success? To me, it's not. Not at all, actually. To me, I can't go with anybody on that. There is a banner that says conference champions hanging in the garden. No, and Connor, you're right. But what that means is that you finished in second. That is the bronze medal is what that is. And to me, sorry, I apologize. The silver medal. We don't play for silver medals. We go for championships. But hey, listen, that's just me. James means a worse draft pick if you don't win the cup. And you are absolutely right, my friend. 100% right. And that is why teams that pick high in the draft, while they are admittedly not successful, they are productive because it helps them on the path to hopefully become a winner. But I think that we do ourselves a massive disservice in life and in sports specifically when we start, putting these, little wins or wins along the way as somehow being a measure of success. And I think we sell ourselves short, frankly. So for me, I don't know. Xavier, we were close, had a great team. They had a very good team. They had multiple very good teams. Well, frankly, they had a very good goaltender who, pretty much blanketed a lot of the issues those teams had because he was God for a couple of years there. And the fact that he did not win a Stanley Cup in New York, referring to Henrik Lundkvist, is a stain on this organization for the rest of time because they had an advantage over every other team in the league for that period of time. And they won nothing. Nothing. They did not win a Stanley Cup. And if you look online, you can find the shirts and the hats they would have worn. And it is just salt in the wound. You think back to Adam Henrique, Game 6 against New Jersey. You think back to Alec Martinez against the Kings. You think back to these moments, and the question then becomes, like, how do you find that to be successful? Was it a positive year? You can look at it that way. You can say, hey, we went rather far. Success is given to just one team at the end. And that is the big trophy that you could pick up right at the end. Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview and killing with the analysis. Let's go Rangers. Thank you, sir. Follow our friends over at Review and Preview. Guys do a great job. Myself and Mike Galetta from the Sports Box were on there this week talking NHL playoffs, a little bit of football. Love those guys. Do a very, very good job. Kevin, is there success based on exceeding expectations? Well, that depends, Kevin, because expectations are a personal decision. I mean, my expectations this year were not for the Rangers to make the playoffs. I don't know what yours were, but they weren't mine. I didn't think they had the odds of them making the playoffs, frankly, weren't very good in my opinion. You may have felt differently, and that's okay. Everybody feels differently about it. There are people who will say they go into every season thinking that their team has a chance to win. And frankly, you can do that. It's not what I would do. I don't begrudge anybody for doing it. I just think it's not really being real. I think that it's a little bit of cheerleading, to be blunt. I'm just not wired that way. And I don't listen. You can do that if you want to, but I think you should need to be real with yourself and say, yeah, I'm rooting for my team to win. I'll always be, hope springs eternal, whatever you want to say. But it's not, I think the team. Now, again, to the points coming in right there, Brian Daly from A2D Radio, love those guys as well. Brian will be on the show and probably at some point over the summer, big Ducks fan, so we'll be talking draft, I'm sure, together. Follow the guys at A2D, we're big fans of them as well. Ron Sposito, we did what I expected. Throw the kids stepped up. Fox, Lindgren, Capo, Alex. This year I want to expect to step up. Dead cap money comes off. Playoff expectations. Ron, you're absolutely right. They need to be a playoff team next year. Anything short of a playoff team next year is a massive disappointment. You can be not disappointed with the outcome, but be honest and say, hey, it wasn't successful. I mean, this year, frankly, is the most purgatory year there is. And we'll talk about the draft lottery. But from a success versus productive standpoint, A, it wasn't successful, and B, it sure wasn't productive because they're picking 15th. So, it's actually maximum sadness because you didn't make the playoffs and you got the worst pick of the team that didn't make the playoffs. So just be honest, and that's okay. Like, I have a lot of respect for fans who are just real. I don't want to hear your pom-poms. Oh, we're so great. We're going to win because this is my team and that's what I want them to do. That's not real life. We as Ranger fans, I think, are actually one of the smarter fan bases out there in how we approach these things. And that is why, in the grand scheme of things, the letter was so impactful, because it was something that this franchise had never done before. It was something where we said, listen, we understand that we need to change this. We are fully aware that the window that we had to win a championship has now closed. The guys that we had are getting older. We need to move on, get rid of players who we have a lot of respect for, and fill it up again. And there you see Jeff Gorton's signature down at the bottom, who's no longer here. I'm going to say there is. But why? Like, why do people need to constantly just spin things to their favor? Listen, I have been very, very happy with what the rebuild has looked like. I haven't disagreed with a lot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's been successful yet. I have expectations that it hopefully might be, because they've done a lot of good things along the way. We'll see where it goes. Canada, I thought they'd make the playoff. I was in the minority. I fully accept that. I thought Zibanejad and Trouba would do better than they did. Well, Zibanejad, did turn it around for the second half of the year, which is very, very important for the team, for sure. But I also thought that this division, especially in this format, just did not favor the Rangers. That you had teams that I just didn't think they were going to get up against. And frankly, look, they had their opportunity, but they're just not there yet. It's a very young team, and people just, and we're going to talk about, the Maple Leafs and the Avalanche and what we can learn from what those teams are doing and have done and what they're going through, and those correlations to the New York Rangers. But I just can't say that anything the Rangers did from 2012 to 2015 was successful. I don't have a Stanley Cup champion shirt. I don't have a Stanley Cup champions banner. I don't have Stanley Cup champion stuff hanging in my basement, which you've all seen in the Ranger room. It's not there because we didn't win. When you win, then you get to enjoy it. But you have to win first. Our friends over at Duffy and BT Sports Network. I know Brandon Taylor, big Bruins fan. You know I got your back right now, bud. Better beat this stupid team. If you don't got a cup, you can't talk success. The Leafs, for example, are a great team, have been a consistent playoff team, but they're such an underachieving team and franchise. Unless you win the cup, it's not real success. You can maybe make an argument if your team makes the finals, but are you going to celebrate a runner-up banner? 100%. 100%. There is a runner-up banner hanging in Madison Square Garden right now. You want to celebrate that? Or does it remind you that you finished second? It reminds you that you lost. You lost. You did not win. There is one winner. Everybody else loses. To whatever extent they lose. But they lose. Some teams find more production out of those losses because they pick higher in the draft. Like the Rangers the last couple of years. I just think that generally speaking, people need to raise their expectations. That's all. Couple more comments coming in here. Brian has from a sports box, go Islanders, which is just so disgusting for a Flyers fan to say. He needs to look in the mirror and just really think about, what he's doing there. Especially it's really a New York team too. You're supposed to hate New York. Big Flyers fan. Ron says, we don't need draft picks. Need kids to continue to develop, step up, add veterans. We'll talk about that. Robert Simpson, good Ranger fan, says 2 to 3 more years. We'll see. Again, I believe that they are a playoff team in the next season. And I believe the year after that is all systems go. I mean, you can make the case it's all systems go next year in the situation that they're in, which we'll talk about over the summertime, I'm sure, as we kind of see, what the team looks like, trades, free agency, and what kind of contracts they sign their own guys to. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think we as Rangers fans are a pretty smart fan base. I think we're pretty realistic for the most part. I mean, we have our pom-pom section, but I just think that that's why something like the letter was so impactful, because we knew. And for the first time in the history of the franchise, we were okay with it. Listen, tear it down, burn it down, build it back up again. And that's where some of the fear and apprehension comes in JD and Gorton going, because listen, these were the guys who were the gatekeepers and the protectors of the path moving forward. And now they're not here. I said it last week on the show. It's not that these are the only guys that can do the job. It's that does them being removed indicate a change in the way things are going to be driven moving forward, a change in how they're going to go? And that, I think, is worth being, frankly, concerned. I think it's fair. Are the Islanders a peasant hockey team? Anthony, I would say yes, except that would be insulting to peasants. I think every Islander fan on the planet is currently in that building tonight. I don't know if they gave out free tickets or not. If there's any asbestos in there, I don't know. Disgusting building. They're losing 1-0. Good. News of the day in Rangerland. The Rangers have come to terms with Nils Lundkvist, a 3-year entry-level contract. For those of you who don't remember, he was the 28th overall pick in 2018, defenseman out of Sweden. And what that means is that all 3 picks are signed. There's Vitaly Kravtsov, taken 9th overall, and there is K'Andre Miller as well, who was traded up. There's the 3 of them from the 2018 draft. All 3 first-round picks are now signed, sealed, and delivered in Ranger blue. The 2018 draft was phenomenal for the Rangers. Phenomenal. It really looks like they've hit on all 3 picks. All 3. Anthony Morello laughing about my Islanders comment. I can still hear the rain dripping from the Islanders building. I mean, hopefully the scoreboard doesn't fall on anybody. I mean, the place is falling apart. I kind of missed the SUV in the corner of Barclays. Stupid was that. So we're going to look back at the 2018 draft as, again, that was the first draft post the letter, right? So that was the first time that, we were in a full-fledged rebuild, which again is just heresy for a team in New York. You can't do that in New York. You got to be balls to the wall all the time. Like those Rangers teams from 98 to 2004, which didn't sniff the playoffs at all. That's life. But it was a very different approach this team was finally taking. One that your host, frankly, was very, very happy with. Thrilled about it. But I think we should really go back and take a look at what the McDonough trade was. And frankly, if Nils Lundkvist doesn't pan out, this is a trade that they're probably going to regret. Again, McDonough and JT Miller, who was traded since, they got Nemesnikov, who was not anything like what he was in Tampa. Brett Howden, who's somehow still on the team. Libor Hayek, who's a bottom pair defenseman at best. They also got a second-round pick the following year, I think, which they used in the Adam Fox deal. So not entirely a loss. I don't know if that's the specific pick they used or not. There might have been a different player they chose there. But either way, it was 2 2s for Fox. So if they end up with Nils Lundkvist and Nils Lundkvist becomes what Nils Lundkvist is supposed to be, I'm actually perfectly fine with this deal. This was brought up to me. I think it might have been James, who brought it up, who said, that deal, frankly, doesn't look very good. But here's the thing. If you go back to the Ryan Callahan trade to Tampa, ironically enough, part of that was, yes, you were giving up 2 1s for Marty St. Louis and a 2, plus Ryan Callahan. But at the same time, you also were then not signing Ryan Callahan. And there is a value to that. Every Ranger fan knew, and I was a big Callahan guy, that next contract was not going to end well. And it didn't end well in Tampa Bay. Had to end up retiring, which saved them from the cap problems that it created. But they didn't sign him. They didn't make the mistake. Personally, I think that this Rangers team signing Ryan McDonough would have been a mistake. And I think that Tampa Bay is going to regret that deal in the second half of it. I think the way he plays is not conducive to a long career. And James, like clockwork, my friend, says underwhelming return. You're not entirely wrong. Lundkvist is the key now. Again, I would frankly say none of the other pieces panned out. And that's reality. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat things here. Again, we don't, on BlueTruth and Ranger fans generally, we should not be taking things that are not success and calling them success. So let's not go ahead and say, oh, look at this great deal they got for McDonough and JT Miller. I can make it, yes, underwhelming is fair. But I do think Nils Lundkvist is going to pan out. I think we have a diamond here. I think this is a very, very good draft pick. I think it was a great pick when it was made, and I think he's done nothing but do very, very well in the Swedish Elite League. So we're good there. Should they have gotten more in retrospect? Yeah. I think that they overestimated what Nemesnikov would do away from Stamkos and that team. I think they overestimated what Brett Howden would become, which frankly is a bottom 6 player at this point, probably a bottom 3 player on the 4th line. They overestimated what Libor Hayek would be. He was the linchpin in that deal. He was the guy they had to get. He has not panned out at all, frankly. I mean, he's still not old, but it doesn't look very good for him. I mean, he can barely make the team. So the key here is Nils Lundkvist. And again, I do think that they have a winner in Nils Lundkvist. And I think he's going to make the opening night roster. And I think he's going to be on your 3rd pair on the right side behind Trouba and Fox. And I think that you're starting to see the defense of the future come together, because right now you have your left-handed D. You have K'Andre Miller, Ryan Lindgren, who was just signed to a 3-year deal, and Zach Jones. And on the right side, you have Jacob Trouba, Adam Fox, who is the man, and Nils Lundkvist. I think that is a very, very good defensive core. I think that has a lot of potential. I think if you don't think that, I think you're not being fair. I think that you're being, frankly, overly negative. Look, again, we don't cheerlead, but you need to call it what it is. I mean, these are elite players, and they're on our team. I mean, listen, K'Andre Miller was a revelation last year in his first year. Anybody upset with his development right now? Again, 2018 pick. Zach Jones won a national championship, signed for a couple games, didn't look out of place. Again, bottom 4 guy. I don't think he's a top 4 guy. He's not like a top pairing guy. Could be in your bottom 4, be just fine. You know, they say he has some Adam Fox traits. That'd be fantastic if he had some Adam Fox traits. Defense looks good. And there's still more coming in the form of Robertson on the left-hand side, in the form of Braden Schneider on the right-hand side. And to quote me from a couple of years ago, best D in the conference, it might be. Not next year, like 2 years. Let the kids grow, for sure. But again, it's a good day. I mean, there were people who thought that he may never come over. There were people who thought that, you know, this wasn't going to work out, that he was going to stay in Sweden or end up being one of these guys that doesn't sign. And, you know, again, given the upheaval, you know, in the front office, I think we can all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief here that we're good, you know, from that standpoint. Draft lottery last night, and the Rangers have broken the 2-year streak of winning. Bastards. They're going to pick 15th. Number 1, Buffalo, who ended up winning. The Kraken went up from 3 to 2. Anaheim will be picking at 3. And then you see the Rangers at pick number 15, which they may keep. They may not. They may use pick 15 in a deal to acquire a player who happens to used to wear number 15. Jack Eichel in Buffalo. We'll see. We will see. So the question now becomes, what do the Rangers do with pick 15? The smart money says they're not going to make that pick. I think either they move up because they're in a position now where the system is so deep and so plentiful that you don't need quantity, you need quality. So don't be surprised if they're moving up. Or they may package that pick in a deal for immediate help because they're going to be aggressive. Kind of says traded or draft a right winger. See now, right winger. That's interesting. Kevin says that pick 3 to 4 years been back in the team. Maybe, yes. I think that that's fair. I think that, you know, again, look right now, we're talking about picks from 2018 making their rookie debuts this year in Kravtsov and in Miller, and Lundkvist just signed. So, yeah, you know, it's, you know, people develop at different, you know, speeds and things like that, but they've been patient. You know, I mean, again, the Rangers are now moving into, again, what they feel is contention, if you will, you know. But yes, I mean, Kevin, you're not wrong at all. I mean, it would be a bit away. Brian Daly, who's a Ducks fan, wants Dylan Guenther at 3. We'll talk more about that as the summer's draft get closer. Absolutely, bud. And listen, Ducks kind of got the shaft here. They did drop from 2 to 3, although it's a weird draft year because of everything that's going on in the world where, and we saw a little bit of this in the NFL draft too, where just because you don't, like, the leagues didn't play, you couldn't scout as much, a lot more video. So, it's tough. I mean, you can make the case that, do you want to be higher for more certainty, or do you want like more stabs at it because you're just not sure? So again, I mean, I don't know that it's the year to have a top pick. I mean, if you think back to the Nolan Patrick, Nico Hischier draft, you were better off at 3, 4, and 5 than you were at 1 or 2. Because is it one of those years that I really, you can't say that now. It's all speculation, but the Rangers picking 15, look, they're in the middle of the pack. If you think back to guys that have been picked 15th overall, there's been some good ones. Joe Sakic, Al McInnes, Mike Bossy from the Islanders. The Rangers picked Alexei Kovalev at 15. The Rangers picked JT Miller at 15. A couple years ago, Cole Caulfield was 15th overall pick. I mean, these are guys obviously you'd love to add to the team at 15. So, we'll see what it looks like, but I don't think that they necessarily make the pick. I don't think they trade down so much. I don't think that's in the cards, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them move up, be aggressive for a more of a talented, single player versus, again, quantity, go for quality, or package it potentially. Now, James, who like me is a vocal Strome critic, likes to see Strome, to move up. Now, in that specific case, Strome might be a piece in a Eichel trade if that's the direction they go. I don't know if I would move Strome just to move up in the draft, simply because, again, they're moving into whatever their win now moment is. So I don't necessarily know that it makes sense to trade roster talent to move up. You can make the case that you can trade young talent and maybe hasn't made the roster yet to move up. Some repetitive, again, the problem with the defense is you got young defense, or guys that you're contractually obligated to, right? So don't know where Robertson's going to play. I like Braden Schneider. I hated the pick when they made it because they needed more defensemen for this exact reason, but Braden Schneider's going to have a spot. You're stuck with Trouba for the next 5 years, at least 3. You're not going to move on from Adam Fox, and I like Lundkvist a lot. So, it's a good problem to have in that you can deal from your strength. But all this time, they haven't taken centers. And center is the most obvious, clear as day need for the Rangers. That's just why they're in the Eichel discussion, because everybody sees that they have a massive hole at second line center that Philip Hedl has not yet taken the brass ring with. How much longer are they going to wait when you have Kreider and Panarin and Zibanejad going to get a deal? Up in age, 27, 28, 29, getting closer to that 3-0. Can you really keep waiting? If you have a chance with the guys that you have, maybe not. Brian Daly, in regards to the Ducks, I think it does suck drop that one spot, but feels better about Guenther at that point. It's going to be a good score, maybe not worth top 2, but especially over an Owen Power. Yeah, and Buffalo's obviously going to take Owen Power. I don't think there's any discussion around that. But now, again, you're adding more D. I mean, him and Dahlin will be a great pair for many, many years to come, but they got a lot of work to do in Buffalo, because I think that, their second overall pick from a couple years ago, he don't want to be there anymore. Kind of says, do you trade Tarmo Runanen given the depth of the defenseman on the team? I think you kind of have to. Again, it's a good problem to have, kind of, but you have to address the needs that you have. You can't just continue to wait for these guys to show up in positions where you're already very strong. And for in some cases good, in some cases bad, this is the defense that you have. Ryan Lindgren, I think, has fortified himself, especially with this perceived need that the Rangers need grit and people that will hit somebody and get in somebody's face. So that's Ryan Lindgren. K'Andre Miller's big. Zach Jones is skilled. I mean, again, everybody talks about the Rangers need this, the Rangers need that, but you don't want to move these guys, do you? Do you want to move a K'Andre Miller for a grittier defenseman? Do you want to move a Zach Jones who you just brought up? You don't want to move Ryan Lindgren, do you? Because that would defeat the purpose. Okay, so on the right side, can't move Trouba. Don't want to move Fox. You just got Nils Lundkvist. People want to bring back Brendan Smith. I mean, seventh defenseman, maybe for cheap on a Jack Johnson type deal. What else are you going to? There's just no room. So we have to kind of get into this mindset of, all these kids aren't all going to play in New York. They just can't. Just the numbers. Brian says, Anaheim needs scoring over defense right now. I agree. Brian Daly, have a good rest of your show. Get ready for mine. Yes, A2D does the Hockey Happy Hour. Give those guys, check them out. They do a lot of great stuff there. I'll probably be joining their show at some point, again, over the summer as we kind of get into the off-ice part of the schedule. James says, move Tony D. They are. They're going to buy him out, but we'll talk about that. Anthony, how about not overpay for Eichel, fill the need through free agency, reevaluate the deadline? Okay. Who? Tell me who you would like to see the Rangers sign in free agency. And then, also, my friend, find the money and find it long-term. Because their salary cap is deceptively good right now. Yes, they have cap space right now. We're going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and why there's a cautionary tale for the New York Rangers and why that cap space can dry up very quickly. Kevin Esposito, whether they deal Strome or not depends if they plan to extend him. If Hayes got $50 million over 7 years on the open market, Strome will get similar, right? Is he worth that on this team? Can a team be a cup contender with Strome as the 2C? I feel he gets dealt. Well, first and foremost, as any of my Flyer fan friends will tell you, I think the Kevin Hayes deal was god-awful. We know Kevin Hayes. The people watching this show know Kevin Hayes and what he is and what he isn't. And what he's not is a $7 million a year player for 7 years. He's not. So that deal was a move of desperation by the Philadelphia Flyers, and they will be reaping the benefits, quote unquote, of that for the next couple of years. Again, I am Kevin. I am not opposed at all to dealing Ryan Strome, and the reality of it is the way his contract is signed. Contract is structured. I do not believe he's here past this upcoming season one way or another. So I'm fine moving him. I would rather not put money into Ryan Strome. I think I'd rather put money somewhere else, especially given the way the team is built. So for me, Casey Cizikas. Okay, well, Casey Cizikas is a fourth line center. So to be fair, Anthony, and I know you like Cizikas, I am not against that, except I like Morgan Barron, who is a center, who could be your fourth line center, unless you move Hedl to the wing, because now you have too many wings with Kravtsov, Kakko, Buchnevich, and I got too many wings. Can't do left side. Got too many wings. It's a numbers game. So you want to put Cizikas on the fourth line? It depends on the money. I mean, the Islanders are in cap hell, by the way. You want to get a laugh? Go look at their salary cap situation. It's an absolute disaster. Lou Lamoriello. So, I don't know. If you like Morgan Barron, and I do, and I think that he can give you some of the element that these people seem to think that we don't have, which is that grit and that ability to go knock somebody out, which again, if you're hitting somebody, you don't have the puck. If you don't have the puck, you can't score. Or if you have the puck, they can score on you. That's just how I view the game. Yes, there's physical nature to hockey, but if you have the puck for 60 minutes, you're hitting no one. Your hits will be 0 because you have the puck every time. Just be aware of that. Kind of the Rangers won the Hayes True. Yeah. So everybody wants to bring up Neil Pionk. Where the hell would Neil Pionk play on this team? Where? Look, has Trouba played well in his deal? No. We don't cheerlead. So, no. He has not played like an $8 million defenseman. Been 2 really screwed up years. I think he can be better. He has the ability to be better. I'm willing to let that run a little longer before we start hitting that panic button. No panic button yet. Not saying it's not saying my hand's not right here on the panic button, but I'm not there yet. Savior says, in the minority, like Strome, him and Breadman have great chemistry. Yeah, but how much of that is Breadman? What kind of chemistry would you and me have with Breadman? And is Strome just the happy passenger on the line? What I really want to see is Panarin and Kakko on the same line. Set. And it sticks. That's what I want to see. We will see. All for development of Morgan Barron, but your point is valid. Their best chance to win is next year. And yes, the salary cap does dictate that. Again, the next year is the last year of Zibanejad at this contract. And then he's going to make $9 million plus. And that's not going to be comfortable. And you still have your younger guys on ELCs. You can make the case that next year is their best chance. I hope it's not their best chance, but you can make the case that it is, simply based on the cap is flat and they have guys who are going to need to get paid. And at some point, you can't pay everyone. Somebody's going to end up on the outside looking in. And they haven't drafted centers that you feel are comfortable enough to take the spot. So, we will see. How many years Buchnevich gets, assuming? I want to say it's probably like 5 years, 6 million a year would be my. I really don't want to go above 6. I don't want to do another Kreider deal at all. I like Buchnevich a lot. Had a great year. And if you put Buchnevich, Kakko, and Kravtsov down the right side of your forwards, I think you can put that talent up against the rest of the league. You can have not a lot of teams can have hang with you on your right wing talent. Opposite your left wing talent, Lafreniere, Panarin, and Kreider. I mean, these are, again, if you figure out your centers, it's an excellent top 9, guys. It's an excellent top 9. And that's where people lose me about they want to go get grit. Well, who are you going to get rid of? Are you going to give up on a Kakko or a Kravtsov to get some grit on your wingers? So we'll see. Trouba's too pricey, too slow. I hear you. Yes, James, I know you've been a very vocal critic of Trouba from the jump, and that's fine. I appreciate your consistency. Too many people have confirmation bias and they change their minds just to spin it. So in your case, my friend, I am a fan and a admirer of your consistency, even if I might disagree with some of your take there. Again, I don't think they make pick 15. Either they're going to move up or they're going to trade out, use it as part of a deal for something else. Coaching update, because that was Robert Simpson who's coaching these guys. So the last little bit of news that we heard was that Gerard Gallant is in Latvia, the World Championships. He had an interview. Rick Tocchet got a second interview. Doesn't mean we need to go run and, Rick Tocchet's the next head coach. But I think they're doing their due diligence. I think the fact that they're in whatever they're going to call their second round of interviews is probably a good thing. Again, goal number 1, keep John Tortorella as far away from this team as possible, potentially put him on a rocket ship to the moon so that he doesn't coach this team. Not a fan. Keep in mind, though, as well, that the Blue Jackets, Tortorella's old team, are in the market for a head coach as well. And Gerard Gallant, I'm sure, is going to be in those conversations, as is Rick Tocchet, as is anybody who's really anybody on the coaching market. So the Rangers really can't wait too long if they've identified the guy that they want. And I think right now they're doing their thing, interviewing people. They're going to wait for Gallant to come back from Latvia in the World Championships to have that second interview. We'll see where things go. What I will say, though, is, and I off the top of my head, I don't remember the other openings at coach other than Columbus. I'm sure there's a couple. Arizona, obviously, because they lost Tocchet. The Rangers' coaching job is by far the most attractive one. So I don't think that a guy like Gallant, he may be getting wooed by a team like Columbus. Well, who the hell wants to go to Columbus? We'll talk about Seth Jones towards the end of the show. But who the hell wants to go coach Columbus when you can coach the New York Rangers, an original 6 team on the come up with a legit contending roster in a year and a half to 2 years? Guys, legitimately, I'm not doing the cheerleading right now. Tell me if I'm wrong. Do you not see this group of players as currently constituted being a legit cup contender in the very short to near future? Because I do. Tell me the weakness. I know what the weakness is. Down the middle. Got to fix that. Defense looks good. Wings look good. Goalie's fine. Legit contender here. So if I am on the market to try to go get a coaching job, well, shit. The Rangers are top of my list. I have a chance to win something in New York City for an original 6 franchise. Compelling. Compelling to say the very least. Very, very attractive job. Big story in hockey, obviously, is the absolute annual, and I do mean annual, the annual collapse of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know how it happened again. A 3-1 lead against Montreal, and they find themselves eliminated again. Carey Price doing a little bit of what Henrik used to do, right? You kind of get a little memories of how good Henrik was in those runs because that's what they had. I mean, I really see some actual crazy correlations between Montreal and the Rangers from the run that they had. But what can we learn as Ranger fans from what has gone on in Toronto? Well, it can be a similar situation. They have roughly 50% of their cap, 49.7% to be exact, locked up in Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander. Coming into next season, $69 million, $69 million against the cap of 81.5. They currently have 8 forwards, 5 defensemen, and 1 goalie signed. Well, by my count, you're 4 forwards, a defenseman, and a goalie short, and you got about $11 million to do it. Now, they bring back Spezza Thornton on cheap deals? Probably. But there are some parallels to the Rangers that we need to be cognizant of, that we don't go down the same path. And Connor brings up a point there. Don't spend $30 to $40 million on 4 guys. Okay. Well, why don't we take a quick look at the Rangers' salary cap right now and see where they're spending their money? Because you have $11 million, we'll call it 11.5, locked up in Panarin, 6.5 in Kreider. That's 18, right? $8 million in Trouba. It's 26. So 30 to 40 million on 4 guys. We're there right now. And Zibanejad is going to get a deal. Call it $9 million. I mean, let's be fair. Is it $9 million? Okay. So then Panarin and Zibanejad make 20 combined, plus 8 from Trouba's 28, plus Kreider, you're 34.5. You're right there. The flat cap really hurts teams like Toronto and teams like the Rangers, because when you're giving Artemi Panarin $11.6 million a year, you are doing that with the anticipation of the cap going up. You get that percentage of cap, and most of the guys really look for cap percentage versus, dollars. I mean, they go by that. But like, you're there. So I've given you those names and those contracts. I haven't paid Adam Fox yet. I haven't paid Capo Caco yet. I haven't paid Alexi Lafreniere yet. I haven't paid Vitaly Kravtsov yet. Haven't paid K'Andre Miller yet. Haven't paid Shesterkin. Haven't paid Buchnevich. And that's where the flat cap's going to be. Anthony says Trouba's deal is a kick in the nuts. The flat cap's a kick in the nuts. Because when you're giving Jacob Trouba $8 million. Well, 8 over 81 is less than 8 over 90. And you have some money coming due for you then at that point that you can use. So that's why when we talk about the Rangers having $24 million in cap space, yeah, they do. But that's going to go pretty quick. And at some point, someone's not going to be here. It's just numbers. Like, you can't go over the cap. This is not the NFL. You cannot restructure contracts. So you're locked in. So Trouba has a no movement clause through 2024, then a modified no trade starting 24-25. Do not be surprised if the Rangers make a move at that point and eat half the money. And that would be fine. I would be fine with that if needed. I think at that point, they're going to have to do that, where he'll submit a 15-team no-trade list and go from there. Xavier says cap eventually will go up. Yeah, but it might be 4 years. And if this is our contention window, what are we going to do? Again, you signed these deals with the expectation the cap's going to go up, and it didn't. So They got to figure it out. I mean, they're not, look, let's be fair. They're not the only team. Every team's got the same problem. I mean, if you want to talk about teams that are getting, uncomfortable in their ass by the salary cap, Tampa Bay, Washington, to a lesser extent, Pittsburgh, with those big dollars. I mean, the Tampa Bay's got $98 million in salary cap this year because they found a way to circumvent with Kucherov. But you can't do that next year. So someone's got to go. Again, it's a cautionary tale because they have highly drafted forward talent. So do we. You know the names, I mean to tell you. They have, in Toronto, big-time, long contracts. So do we. I just outlined them for you. So again, you need to be wary of locking up so many players at big money deals at the same time. Realize that you need to have and keep some cap available for when deals expire. At the same time, all the talk in Toronto is up. You got to blow up the Leafs. We forget how young these players are. Austin Matthews is 23. Mitch Marner's 24. Nylander's 25. The one guy who they would love to probably move on from is John Tavares, who's 30. That guy's got a no movement clause. That contract might be what sinks the ship there. And I'm not an anti-Tavares guy. I think it's funny he left the Islanders. I enjoy that. I find it entertaining. They get all mad all the time still about it. But you can't get out of the deal. So we need to be aware of the parallels and not fall into the same traps. We cannot overpay guys. And they've already done a little bit of that, right? Trouba's Trouba. I understand the trade. I understand the contract when it was done. When you do that deal, you don't know Fox is coming. When you give Chris Kreider 6'5", for the period of time you gave him 6'5", you don't know you're taking Alexi Lafreniere in the first round of the draft. So you don't know that that's going to be a third line left wing for $6.5 million. He won't finish his deal here, by the way. I know that. I can't. There's no way. It's just math. It's just math. James says Killorn gets moved. Probably. But again, that's a big part of their team, right? So this affects teams. It forces them to disassemble when they don't want to out of necessity. Saver says Cirelli from Tampa will be a good pickup. Again, not inexpensive to go get. But if they got to move money, I mean, he signed a deal, which I thought was, if I recall correctly, I got to go look at it now. But his deal, Cirelli is making 4.8 for 3 years. See, again, I mean, they got to figure out. I mean, Tyler Johnson, they already waived. They probably got to do that again. Next year is the big one. I mean, Palat's money comes off when Point needs a deal for them, so they get some of that back. Blake Coleman will be a free agent. Goodrow will be a free agent. Their problem is they're paying Hedman 7.8, which is fine. I'll pay Hedman 7.8. I'll pay Hedman 10.8. It's McDonough's deal. And they were in a no-state tax, and Vasilevsky making 9.5. So for all the people that hated Lundkvist's contract, well, I mean, it's what the good goalies get paid, right? Carey Price. Canada said the modified no-trade clause in Kreider is going to go a long way for the Rangers. I completely agree. They will move that deal. And if you got to eat some, you got to eat some. But they'll move that deal. And they will have to because you're not going to continue to pay that for a third-line winger. And we all said, well, I'm sure you guys thought what I did, but we all thought when they signed Kreider to that deal, like, hey, back end of that deal is not going to look very good. It's just not. And we knew it at the time, which is why we advocated for the trade. Get out now. Because Chris Kreider, like Callahan, similar type of situation where the second half of that deal is not going to be good. He is 30 years old and he has 6 more years at 6.5. He ain't going to be here for the duration. So again, keep in mind, learn the lessons provided by Toronto. Do not rush to judgment, but be aware of those contracts. Where Toronto is a cautionary tale, the Avalanche may be a model for the Rangers. Now, why is that? Well, they have highly drafted talent. There's a number 1 pick in Nathan McKinnon. They're the 2nd overall pick in Gabe Landeskog, and there's a 10th overall pick in Mikko Rantanen. 1, 2, and 10. First overall pick in Alexis Lafreniere. Second overall pick in Kaapo Kakko. And he may as well have been 10th, but 9th overall pick, Vitaly Kravtsov. All forwards, talented, scoring guys are what they're going to become. Very similar to what's going on in Colorado. But at the same time, Nathan MacKinnon didn't really break out until year 5. Go look at the numbers, guys. I mean, he was an okay player, but he wasn't Nathan MacKinnon until the 5th year of that deal. So as far as using Colorado as a model for the Rangers, well, yeah. And the Rangers get compared to them a lot, which is very exciting. But we need to not rush to judgment. So many people, and I think football does this, but so many people, Lafreniere is a bust. Oh, why? Because he didn't score a couple goals in his first 20 games in empty arenas where you're playing the same 7 teams. Oh, Kakko's a bust. Why? Because David Quinn's going to get him off the 4th line 2 years ago, and then last year he'd be more of a defensive forward because probably that's how Quinn told him to coach. Pump the brakes. They're kids. They're 20-year-olds. We're just talking about Austin Matthews being 24. Everyone just wants to. It's not cheerleading, but it's that instant gratification. It's these guys should come in and dominate the league because that's what Austin Matthews did. That's what Connor McDavid. Guess what? Alexis Lafreniere, not Connor McDavid. Newsflash. Going to be a very good player, not Connor McDavid. So. We all like Patrick Laine. His numbers have fallen off. Finished like Kaapo Kakko. But again, just don't rush to judgment. Patience, patience, patience. Look where Colorado is right now. They're a buzzsaw. They're obliterated. They haven't lost a playoff game yet. They're like the Rangers were in 94. The Rangers didn't lose a playoff game until game 4 against Washington. It was game 4. Game 3 or game 4. I think it was game 4. Either way, they did go 6-0. And the last 2 teams to go 6-0 that won the President's Trophy won the Stanley Cup. We were one of them. 94, and I think the Stars in 98. So, we'll see. But the lesson provided by Colorado is not to rush to judgment at all. Connor brings up a very good point. Both the teams have former captains as their GMs. And Drury played there. There's a lot to look. I think Colorado is a model organization. And the fact that the New York Rangers are drawing comparisons to Colorado, I mean, guys, you're 6 to midnight on that. I mean, if we can become that, how do you not get just totally enamored with that? So I also want to touch on tonight the expansion draft, taking an early look at kind of what we can expect, from that side of things coming up soon. So the Rangers will have to protect 7 forwards. Well, not have to. They will. They have the opportunity to protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. The good thing for the Rangers is there's also plenty of people who are exempt. So the NMCs have to protect the NMCs. So Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, protected off the bat. There's 3 of your 7 right there, which you'd protect anyway, right? So whatever. No skin off. Where the benefit comes from the Rangers is the people who are exempt. Due to age and service time, Lafreniere, Kakko, Kravtsov, Morgan Barron are exempt from the expansion draft. I mean, that's nice. You don't have to worry about them too much. So you have 4 forward slots left. The question comes who to protect. Which 4 of these names will the Rangers protect? The names are Ryan Strome, Pavel Buchnevich, Philip Hedl, Brett Howden, Julian Gauthier, Kevin Rooney, Colin Blackwell, Phil DiGiuseppe. Well, off the bat, we're going to protect Strome and Buchnevich. Again, this assumes nobody's getting traded. We'll see where it goes from there. Strome, Buchnevich are pretty easy picks. For that matter, so is Hedl. 21st overall pick in the draft, RFA, 21 years old. You're not going to let him go to Seattle for nothing. So you're pretty much down to one protection slot on your offense left for Howden, Gauthier, Rooney, Blackwell, and Di Giuseppe. And I go back and forth on this. I do. And I didn't think I was going to say this a month ago. My seventh guy is Colin Blackwell, and Connor made the comment in the chat there. I think he's the seventh guy. Not that I ever want to see him on my top 9, like ever again. I'd like to see him on the 4th line where he belongs, not at the expense of guys like Buchnevich, Kakko, and Kravtsov. I don't need Kravtsov on the 4th line ever again. Ever again. So I think Blackwell's a 7th guy. I mean, let's think about this. Brett Howden has been like a disaster, right? Like here's a big piece of a deal that has not panned out. They went and got Gauthier from Carolina for Joey Keane. Gauthier couldn't crack the lineup this year. And at the end of the day, is Gauthier a 4th line right wing? Because you have your top 9 right wings. You have your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd line wingers. And we all know who they are. So it's not as if Gauthier can work. Is he going to supplant Kravtsov? Probably not. And if he does, that's a bigger problem. So I don't think so. Rooney, whatever. Barron replaces him. Di Giuseppe, it's another guy, So to me, I'll take Blackwell because, again, showed some offensive numbers last year. Don't know if he can do it again, but I think I'm more apt to protect a guy like that. I don't know who they protect. I just prefer it not to be Howden if I have the option there. I could see it being Gauthier, and I'd be fine with that. I just think it's going to be Blackwell. I think it's the production. Your guys' thoughts, whoever's watching out there, feel free to share your comments. But for me, I think it's Blackwell. We'll see. Defensively, you have one no movement clause. That's Jacob Trouba. Number 1, you'd protect him anyway. Number 2, Seattle probably wouldn't take his contract. So again, the no movement clause is immaterial. Doesn't matter. Won't be moved anyway. Here's where it gets juicy. Exemptions. Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, Zach Jones, and Nils Lundkvist because they're young and they don't qualify. This expansion draft could not have come at a better time for the Rangers because if you had to only protect 3 defensemen, my God, where would they be? If you had to protect 7 forwards, my God, who would they be exposing? So all in, and you go back to when Oscar Lindbergh was taken by Vegas, they're in a very, 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 very good spot with who they're exposing and protecting the expansion draft because of the exemptions that they have. So the remaining guys who you would pick 2 to protect. So Ryan Lindgren, check that off number 1. That one's easy. You're not going to protect Tony DeAngelo because you are going to buy out Tony DeAngelo. And I don't think I don't think Seattle takes him anyway. We can have a debate as to whether or not it's in the team's best interest to buy out Tony DeAngelo. Yes, Gorton's not there anymore. And yes, it was Gorton's decision. But I think you've kind of made your bed there. And I didn't think that DeAngelo would be on the team past this upcoming season when he signed that contract anyway, simply because of the money he was going to need to make and the guys that are coming up the system. So I think DeAngelo gets exposed. So then you're down to Smith and Hayek. Now, Smith is a pending UFA. You're probably not going to protect a pending UFA. So as currently constituted, it's Libor Hayek. Do I love Libor Hayek? No. Not at all. But you can protect 3 guys. In a future iteration of the show, we're going to talk about what the Rangers might be able to do in trades with other teams who may have guys that they can't protect, that they don't want to lose for nothing. And the Rangers, especially defensively, are in a prime spot to be vultures on that. Not doing it tonight. The next couple of weeks, as we get a little closer to the expansion draft, we'll go check out some of the teams and see who the Rangers might be able to vulture away from some of the teams that are there. So, again, Trouba is an automatic. Lindgren's not moving, just signed a deal. It's Hayek or it's a trade. We will talk about trade potential in the coming weeks. Let's not get into anything right now, but that's just how it looks for the expansion protections right now. So goalies, no movements, no Henrik Lundkvist. Shesterkin exempt. Everybody's exempt. It's wonderful. I love the way these rules are set up. So then you can only protect one goalie who you would need to protect. It comes down to Georgiev or Kincaid. Think it's pretty clear here you're going to protect Alex Georgiev? Trade chip has some value. Could that be somebody who you trade to a team before this? Maybe. I'm of the belief that Georgiev isn't here next year because I think they're going to need the money. But he's about time. I mean, I think for him, it's about time that he moves on, gets a starting job somewhere, at least like a 1A. Very much in the line of, the Talbot, Ronta. He's like the next guy to me. So I do think he finds his way into a deal. And probably the Rangers are better off. They have a goaltending pipeline still coming. So from that standpoint, you're probably okay. And again, my pick here would be to protect Georgiev. Easy, because he's your most valuable piece. You sign Kincaid for nothing. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, we got to protect Keith Kincaid. Oh, no. They signed Keith Kincaid, period, because they wanted to be able to expose Keith Kincaid. And they had to have somebody to expose. So he'll be exposed. So the notable exposures, Brett Howden, from my mix, which again, I don't know anything more than anybody else, but that's just who I would expose, would be Brett Howden, Julian Gauthier, Kevin Rooney, Phil DiGiuseppe, Tony DeAngelo, and Keith Kincaid. Those, I think, are the primary names, or the notables anyway, that would be exposed by the Rangers in this expansion draft with Seattle. So then, guys, the question becomes, and I want to hear from you, who will Seattle take? If you were Seattle, and this was your list of people to choose from, who would you take? If it were me, I'm probably taking Julian Gauthier simply because of the upside. He could be a middle six winger in the right team, in the right system, with the right coach and the right surroundings. I don't think Brett Howden's going to be any more than a fourth line guy. I can find fourth line guys. Kevin Rooney is a journeyman. DiGiuseppe's a fourth line guy. Tony D is a head case. Why am I going to do that? Keith Kincaid's a goaltender. I can go get go. To me, if I was Ron Francis and I was a Seattle Kraken and this was my list of guys I could take from the New York Rangers, the player that I would take is Julian Gauthier. Reminds me a bit of Oscar Lindbergh, actually, just in the way that, not that fans overrate him, but, James says Lee Fost exposed. Oh, wait. Yeah. That's Carolina might. I haven't looked at Carolina's expansion draft situation, but again, if it were up to me, I think Seattle ends up taking Gauthier. As we end tonight's show, just a little talk around the NHL, some different topics around the league. So Seth Jones has told the Columbus Blue Jackets that he will go to unrestricted free agency with a year left on his deal, and he just might be traded by the draft. If you're a Blue Jackets fan, and I'm sure there's some Blue Jackets fans out there, what do you do? I mean, think back now at the players who have decided they don't want to be there. Rick Nash, Gaborik wanted to leave when he was there for the short period of time. Dubois was traded. Panarin didn't want to go back. Duchesne didn't want to go back. Bobrovsky didn't want to go back. Talk about a shitty contract. And now Seth Jones. Everybody who you draft and cultivate, and they made a great deal to get Seth Jones by trading Ryan Johansson at the right time. I don't know what you do. And if you're them, I don't think you can wait either. Like, I don't think they're a playoff team next year. I don't think they're a contender next year. So why wait? I would try to trade Seth Jones this offseason, preferably before the draft. And no, he does not need to be a New York Ranger because they can't pay him.
he's going to want Trouba money, more than Trouba money. Is he worth it? Maybe. Not a lot of offensive power. Big guy. I mean, defensively skilled for sure. His analytics have gone down the last couple of years. If you're an analytics person, hasn't really been as impactful. So, I think they trade Seth Jones by the draft. I think a dark horse team to get him is probably the Flyers, who seem like they're going to do something really stupid and desperate this offseason. Wouldn't shock me. I think that's not where the Rangers should be looking to augment the team, and with a guy like Seth Jones, because I'll call it what you can't afford to pay him. You just can't. So there's no point in trading assets for the player that you can't keep anyway. They're just not set up for it with their cap, and defense is not really their problem. Everybody wants to think that the Rangers need to go after defensemen. If something makes sense, sure. I'm not going to disassemble my roster to go get Seth Jones. If you have thoughts, please share. Right before the show tonight, we got some news in regards to Mark Scheifele, who, as you can see here, laid out Canadian center Jake Evans scoring an empty net goal last night or the other night in Montreal's win. Evans got a concussion. As of tonight, Scheifele was handed down a 4-game suspension. That you see him leaving on a stretcher. Thumbs up. It's always good to see that. You don't want to see guys, obviously be injured. But all of it I can think, look, I wish Evans the best. I hope he recovers, obviously. I thought it was a clean hit. Was it a charge? Probably. I mean, you can say that. But it wasn't like, he targeted the head or anything like that. But what I keep getting drawn back to is that's a 4-game suspension, and Tom Wilson gets a fine for giving Artemi Panarin, a legitimate superstar in the league, a Jake the Snake Roberts style DDT into the ice. With all respect to Jake Evans is a nobody. Artemi Panarin is a superstar. And yet the league felt it best to give Tom Wilson a fine for what I thought was worse than that. There's no consistency at the league office. None. They want to find the Rangers. They ain't going to find me. Can't try. I just look back at it, and it just bothers me. It bothers me because not that this conspiracy theory that, look, Rangers fell apart after that. Nah. The league should protect its stars. The NFL does that with quarterbacks. Can't the quarterback. You can talk about, is that good for the league? Is it not good for the league? Well, league's about making money, right? You have to protect your assets. Jake Evans is not really an asset to the league. I'm not taking a shot at Jake Evans. Just say Jake Evans is a grinder, role player. He's not a top 6 star. He's not a goal scorer. People aren't really buying his jersey. And Artemi Panarin is all of those things. And yet the league found that they needed to suspend the guy who is a star, Mark Scheifele, for the hit on Jake Evans, whereas Artemi Panarin gets ragdolled. That's fine. Fine. Write us a check. I think the league's priorities are just all kinds of screwed up. Xavier says, hypothetical, if Luke Hughes falls to 15, do you draft him? I would, based on potential. Honestly, something tells me that if the Rangers stay where they are, it's the Finnish center Aatu Raty, who was the faller. Like, he was a guy who was supposed to be top 1, top 3 pick in the draft, and then he had a bad year this year. And I'm always like, I look around the league, like I don't look at what Lafreniere or Kakko did this year as indicative of necessarily how bad their future might be, because it's just a screwed up year in the world, guys. You don't need me to tell you. We're finally getting out of the doldrums of the pandemic. You've had empty buildings, bubbles. I mean, I'm not going to make franchise altering decisions or that I wouldn't have made any other way based on what I've seen on the ice in the past year and a half. Just my view on it. I don't know. Something tells me, Xavier, I think if they stay where they are, and here's the thing too, we talked about, quality versus quantity. Give me boom or bust. You know what? I don't want a guy, I don't want Lias Anderson, right? I don't want a guy who I think, this is a middle 6 player and that's the best he's going to be. Well, screw that. I either want a guy who's going to be a superstar or off my team in 3 years. I don't need anything in the middle. I have that. Get me what I can't find, and that is elite talent.
And if I screw up trying to find elite talent, oh well. Oh well. What did Boston do with David Pastrnak? Fell in the draft. How's he doing? Pretty good. You want to give me David Pastrnak? Yeah, sure. That's the kind of guy I want. Give me boom or bust, nothing in the middle. I want no safety. I want a stud, or I want a guy who we remember in 10 years, a horrible draft pick. Call him, I don't care. Go for the star. James says, situation concussion added to the decision. The game was clearly over. Yeah, but James, the game wasn't clearly over. He was going to score a goal. It wasn't as if Scheifele got to him 3 seconds after the puck went in. Scheifele is trying to save the game. He is trying to stop the puck from going in the net, which then ends the game. So, I mean, to be fair, I watched the play a lot of times. I mean, is it a bang-bang play? Yeah, if you want to use like a baseball analogy. But what I'm saying is he's trying to stop Evans from putting in the empty net goal to seal the game. They had time for one more rush, if not. Would they have scored? Probably not. I mean, we've seen crazier stuff. Valerie Zalapukin, 7.7 seconds. 1994 Game 7 against Devils. Chris Drury against the Rangers, 7.7 seconds, ironically enough, in that series in 07. 07. So, I mean, look, it was a big hit, but he was trying to save the game. I don't think he was trying to kill anybody. So, Gary Bettmore's commissioner in sports. Oh, I mean, Adam Silver is doing a bang-up job in the NBA. That's why LeBron James walking off the court with 5 minutes left to go in a playoff game. Could you imagine a hockey player do that? Could you imagine Sidney Crosby with 5 minutes left in a game, the Penguins are down 4-1 in game 5 of a playoff series, just walking off the ice, walking back to the dressing room? Could you imagine? He'd get killed. He would get killed. Hockey fans are different. So yeah, James has no chance. He had a ship in the shoulder the whole game, intent to injure, not stop the goal. That was a given goal. Listen, for you, I'll watch the play again, and I'll try to slow it down. That was a wraparound. He wasn't on a breakaway. Scheifele could have got there. He didn't get there, but he could have got there. From what I saw. I'll watch it again. So, anyway, guys, thank you for spending the time with me talking Rangers hockey while the Islanders are still losing 1-0. Little shout out to Chad holding the red, white, and blue at Nassau tonight. Islanders getting horribly outshot right now. 29-17. Huh. I wonder if the Islanders are out hitting them right now. Huh. Oh boy. Anyway, give us a like on the BlueTruth page. Check out the Sports Box page. Follow the YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Give us a subscribe there. Make sure you're sharing your comments. Tell all your friends, family, and other Ranger fans. Let's talk Rangers hockey. It is our favorite topic. I know it's not just mine, so make sure that you're following along. I don't think there's going to be a show necessarily next week, but we'll see how things go. I know our UFC show is coming back for Thursday nights. But anyway, we're going to see how things go. But as it gets a lot closer to free agency and the draft, a lot more coverage and everything like that. But I very much appreciate. I very much appreciate you guys taking the time with me tonight. Love talking hockey with Ranger fans. Love the interaction. Really appreciate that. So again, thumbs up to you guys. You make this show better. You make me better at it. So thank you for that. And you've watched BlueTruth with Brian Attard. And that's the truth. And we will see you next time round.